return to Freddy's, a FNAF fan game series that has garnered quite a notorious reputation long ago. Since it was first released as a FNAF 3 hoax game back in 2014, it was viral for all the dumb reasons. It was a buggy mess with awful self-inserts and a nonsensical story that was poorly explained, and every game that came after just became more and more nonsensical as time went on. Now, I'm not trying to be downright cruel about these games and the developer as a whole, but that's just how my opinion on this series is. It's a mess of a fan game series that was over the top in terms of story, with big ambitions planned for the future by its creator that went nowhere. Currently nowhere. But today, I am not talking about the original games, nor its sequels. Instead, I want to talk about its remakes that came years later. Specifically, the topic of this discussion. Hello everybody, my name is Clover1, and today I want to talk about, in my opinion, the best Return to Freddy's remake ever made. The Return to Freddy's 2, Winter Wonderland. So to start off this video, I just want to briefly talk about how this game came to be. Winter Wonderland was developed by Luminance Productions, a group of developers on Game Jolt who started their work on the game back in 2020 and eventually released it in 2021. A year full of TRTF remakes. And that was about it. The game eventually fell silent and Luminance began work on another FNAF fan game, Rat Race, which I am stoked to see when it releases. But getting back on topic, Winter Wonderland pretty much accomplished what it set out to do. It was a great reboot to the original game, it was received well, and everybody moved on. And that's where I come in today. It's been about 3 years since the game came out, and I just want to talk about why I think it's the best remake of the original series. Now I know that I mentioned the other remakes, and there could be one that is the best, but none of them felt truly different from the source material like Winter Wonderland. You might have your own opinion on what is the best TRTF remake, and I'll be happy to hear those thoughts out. Anyway, I'll finally begin talking about why I think Winter Wonderland is the best remake, starting with the visuals. The visuals of the game are phenomenal. Even 3 years later, it is still amazing in terms of quality. Now, this is a very bold statement to come from me, but man, is it hard for me not to gush over the visuals. Right when the game begins, with its opening cutscene, you could just see how much work was put into the game. From the environment, to the minigames, to the animatronics, everything is so visually fascinating. Again, it's hard for me not to gush over the visuals. So to spare some time for the other things I want to talk about, I will keep this section short and brief, for that simple reason. Okay, let's continue. Starting off with the environment, I was amazed at how much work was put into it being similar, yet different from the original. The office has such a welcoming aura to it, making it so that you as the player don't feel a touch of horror from the start. The animatronics also fit into the office environment so perfectly that it doesn't seem as if the animatronics were just slapped on, especially when they're in the main hall. I love how they jitter in the light when you shine them. It's just perfect. And on the cameras, they fit in so well that it's hard to not notice the amount of detail on them. Even if they are in the dark, you still manage to see some hints of work done to make them unique in their own way. Speaking of which, the animatronic designs are amazing. I love how the main four and the puppet look, with their traditional designs recaptured and reimagined from the original game, and their felt bodies that help them at least not scream, "I'm a new model for the establishment." That is what I see with the characters like Sugar, Doug, and Frank Burt, with them having a much glossier and plastic appearance that makes them stand out perfectly. This small variety with the designs is perfect in my opinion, as it makes them feel different and not the same coat of material they are made of. This also extends to the 8-bit minigames with our night guard traversing the area, the 3 side missions, the loading screens, the cutscenes. They're amazing in terms of visuals and I love it! Which is where I'm gonna stop, because yes, there is so much more about the visuals I love. But the other stuff I want to talk about is probably a lot longer, so I'll just end it off here. But still, the visuals are amazing. Alright, let's move on. Now, before I talk about the gameplay, I have to state that the footage of the game I'm showing isn't from my gameplay of Winter Wonderland, but from others who played it. The reason being that I tried to play the game myself, and for the first 2 nights, it played fine. That is until I got to the generator side mission, and my computer began to lag, and slow the game down. Now, this isn't the game's fault. Blame my slow-ass computer. Or not. But don't worry, I'll credit and link the other people who played the game in the description and on any footage of the game I'll show in this video. Alright, let's continue. The gameplay of Winter Wonderland is not that different from the original game, but there are tweaks to it that I'll mention later. First off, the main gameplay is incredibly fluid. The mechanics of the mask and cameras are well put together, making the experience of playing the game that much more worth it. Now, there isn't much to say about the mask mechanic since it's just FNAF 2, aside from the added toxicity mechanic, which won't let you use anything else while wearing it. Same for the flashlight, as it's used only to see if an animatronic is in the main hall, or the 2 vents. Rather, it's the cameras that I want to talk about, because this game, like the other remakes of FNAF 2 for the most part, has a music box mechanic, making the cameras, for the most part, completely useless. And aside from the generator, there's nothing much to do on the cameras except for checking on the puppets. But that's only for night 1, because the later nights introduce a threat and a mechanic that makes you use the cameras. And I'll get to him in a bit, right after I talk about the first few animatronic mechanics. The animatronics, aside from the aforementioned puppet, have their own ways for you to defend against them. The main 3, Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica, will always appear in front of you, making you use the mask to let them leave you alone for a moment. Foxy, however, will either enter the main hall or the 2 vents, making you use the flashlight to get rid of him temporarily. Sugar, on the other hand, is a combination of the main 3 mechanics and Foxy's, with her either appearing in front of you or hiding in the vents. So we'll have to use the mask or the light depending on where she is. That is where we get to meet Doug, an animatronic I have a rough history with. Allow me to explain. Doug, compared to the other animatronics, can be seen on the same stage as Sugar. But Doug, like the puppet, has to be viewed on the cameras to be stopped. And why do I have a rough history with him? Well, thanks to his poorly explained mechanics. See, whenever Doug leaves the stage on night 2, and then the rest of them, he'll appear in one of the 2 hallways, so you have to use the whistle mechanic to send him back. However, the phone guy says he'll appear in one of the cameras, which from my playthrough caused a lot of deaths.
If he ever leaves his spot on the stage in Party Room 1, find where he is on the cameras and use the whistle. It'll draw him back to his stage in a heartbeat.
Because of how poorly explained it was, this mechanic drove me insane while playing the game for the first time. To the point where I removed it from my computer and never played it again for over 3 years because of how much it just stressed me out. Thankfully, I was able to finally get a grasp on them and was able to finish night 2 with relative ease, until I got to the previously mentioned generator side mission. Now yes, I didn't mention Fredbear and Spring Bonnie for a bit in this section, but they're basically like Sugar, just more difficult, which is why I didn't want to mention them at all. And that is about it for the gameplay, because I want to end off this video with me talking about the story of this game, which was interesting for me to leave it at last. So let's talk about it, shall we? So the story of Winter Wonderland goes as follows, pretty much. Fredbear's family diner has closed after a tragedy struck the restaurant. However, Fazbear's Entertainment has made a decision to rebrand and reopen, with a new set of animatronics in place of the aging old cast. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is guaranteed to be the magical place for kids and grown-ups alike, where fantasy and fun comes to life. However, we need a night guard to watch over the building as it's under reconstruction. And that is mainly the synopsis for the game dump page, and it does set up the game pretty well. Now yes, this is not much information on the game, but it still gets you hooked on it regardless. That's because the actual story of the game you slowly build up is all worth it. Throughout the daytime minigames with the Night Guard, you can encounter a glitching snowman in a random area after each night. And if you come close to it, you'll be thrown into a secret minigame, where for my run of the game started off with the possession of the puppet, with that one basically being the origin of Charlie Emily. But later on you begin to play as a character I'll just call Green Guy, since the original name of him was this. And here is where we get a much more interesting narrative, where Green Guy begins to follow the puppets and ends up in the room with Frank and Bart, only for William Afton to show up at the exit of the room and supposedly murder Green Guy. And this revelation comes to fruition when we play the Frank Birdside mission of disassembling him, only to be met with this. This one moment pretty much not only scares us as the player, but also our phone guy, who after this mission on night 5 he pretty much sounds more concerned than before.
Hello? What are you doing there? Didn't you hear? You can't be there right now. It happened. Something really bad happened. I knew this day was gonna come eventually. Oh god. Someone found the Frankfurt robot. They must have set off the spring locks. Please don't go in the back room. Don't even look at the camera. Everything's just gone horribly wrong.
This eventually leads to the end of night 5, where we, the Night Guard, get trapped at the restaurant due to the piles of snow blocking our way out of the pizzeria. And then we meet a somewhat familiar face. This begins the final night of the game, where you'll have to defend against Spring Bonnie, Fredbear, the puppet again, and Shadow Frank Burt. And like I already mentioned in the gameplay section of this video, it's not that difficult. Never mind. But eventually, after reaching 6 AM, you feel like you finally won, only for the power to go off, and after a few seconds, this happens. And that was the return to Freddy's 2 Winter Wonderland. I know that was a bold way to end the section like this, but I just wanted to. All in all, this is a very strong game. Its visuals are welcoming and beautiful, the gameplay is fluid, and the story, to me, felt truly well written from start to finish. And that's where I'll end this discussion. I hope you all enjoyed this video and maybe are thinking of playing the game for yourself. Please feel free to comment your opinions on the game and support Luminance Productions on their Game Shop page. Please also check out some of my art on X, aka Twitter, and Instagram, and please check out my comic Pretty Girl Plus Devil. Chapter 2 just released today, so please check it out. So thank you all for watching, and Merry Christmas everyone.